right. Good to go?
I believe so.
All right. We thank everyone for joining us tonight, this evening. As you can see, we're back in the school board room and grateful for the school board and Dr. Savage and Marcy and Dr. Dilge and Zach to be with us. I'm going to go ahead. It is 7:21. I'm going to call our meeting on March 31st. Okay. Is that not ours? I guess we want it. So, everybody.
Ted, are you muted?
I'm on.
Okay.
How about your volume?
I'm on.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and if those in the room would please stand with me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, just a reminder to all those that are joining us and to those of us in this room, our mission is to provide a supportive, personalized environment in which students will grow strong intellectually, emotionally, physically, and socially today in preparation for tomorrow. And for those of us that are in this room, I want to remind us with our masks on just to speak up a little bit so the microphone can hear us and everybody at home can hear us as well. We are going to go ahead and start with our learning report on mindfulness. And for that, we've got the Valley Park counselors.
All right, and I think everybody's on. Thank you, Mr. Picker. We appreciate your time tonight. Dr. Savage, thank you so much. I'm hoping everybody can hear me. Can't really tell. But we wanted to spend just a few minutes of your time to just give you an outline of some of the things that we've been working on since this summer and kind of share our roadmap and our vision and how that really translates and how we work with our students and our families. So if you would, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen real quick and let me get that set up for you. All right. Okay. And what we're going to do is first, I want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Erin Steinkamp. I am the middle school counselor here at Valley Park, and I'd like to let our team introduce themselves. So Ashley, would you go ahead and kick that off?
Hi, I'm Ashley Hawkins. I am one of the elementary school counselors.
Yolanda?
I'm sorry, I did not unmute. I'm Yolanda Hardison, the part-time elementary school counselor that works with Ashley.
Awesome. Emma?
I am Emma Goldberg. I am the high school counselor at Valley Park High School.
Okay. And Dana?
I'm Dana Evans. I'm the SSD social worker, and I'm K-12.
Okay. And last but not least, Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Mirth, school psychologist for special, and I work K through 12.
Thank you, guys. And before we really get into the meat of this, I want to recognize our SSD partners and number one, thank them for all that they do. Our building counselors, we could not deliver the services and all of the programming that we do without having the support, not only of Dana and Christy, but even our youth in need therapists that are here on campus. So this is a very collaborative effort with all of us, and we really do appreciate the partnership that we have with everyone. As we get into this, if there are questions, just let us know, and we will, try to walk you through it as best we can. This roadmap that we created, we were kind of tasked with that this summer to look at what we can do to help meet the needs of our students. And when I know that our board presentation said mindfulness, And mindfulness is just one tiny piece of this overarching guidance program that we do. So we wanted to give you an overall view of what that looks like. We're looking at social emotional learning. We're looking at character education. We deal with individual and responsive services, mindfulness, growth mindset, and just that overall emotional and social wellness of our students and our families. So let's make sure that I can do this. Apologize. All right. So when we look at our continuous plan, our why, we were, like I said, we were tasked with doing this, and we wanted to make sure that it covered not just where we are in the moment, but it would kind of branch out and reach out to other things as we go through every year, every school year, everything that we would see, whether it would be needs of students, needs of families, any other type of large scale event that we come across, that our goals and our standards and our guidance program would meet those needs. So we know that due to the onset of this continuous exposure to trauma, the COVID-19 pandemic, we were aware that there's just this huge increased need for focus in the area of social emotional learning, in the area of mindfulness, in looking at trauma-informed practices. And I know that those are all buzzwords, but we've taken that and we've put that under this umbrella of what our roadmap looks like. And our foundational support, we look at competencies that we use for SEL. We look at how we are promoting SEL for our students, not just here, but how we can do that at home and help our families work with their students at home. And then how that is continuous growth. And what we've done is we've taken and compiled that information to reflect the crosswalks between our standards. So Missouri gives us guidance standards, just like any core subject would have. And then we broke that down into our building initiatives, as well as CASTLE, which we get those core competencies for our social emotional learning from. And what we have now is a living document that we can add to, we can make changes to as we adjust to meet the needs of our students, okay? Because we know that students that we have today were not like our students that we had 20 years ago. We know that. And the students we might have next year and the year after and the year after that are going to look different. So we want to make sure that this is something that we can always adapt to. Crosswalks, when we talk about that and when we look at this chart, it was really important that we had something that would align across the board, because we want every building to have a piece in this, but making sure that we all have those core concepts that we hit on. And at one point, somebody said something about kind of like a melting pot of things that we do. And I think the better analogy might be a salad bowl, because as individual buildings, we all have these little pieces, just kind of like a salad. Somebody might like the croutons in the salad, or the cheese, or the meat that you put in, or whatever it is. But when we take and we put all those pieces together, it's a much more fulfilling whole meal. And so that's what we're looking at. That's our salad bowl that we're looking at. We all have these wonderful pieces, but we put them together to make that wonderful big meal. So when we did this, and this was right at the beginning of the school year when we were all still virtual prior to everyone coming back, we were looking at what it would take for us to make sure that we reached not just students, but their families, and then being able to help with our teachers and help with our staff members. And so these were some of those components that we wanted to make sure that in every building we would hit upon. And just knowing how things have progressed from the beginning of the year, from August until now, some of these things have not been able to be done in person. For example, small groups. We know that there's no way I can pull 6 kids and put them in a room and social distance. That's just not going to happen. So we've had to be very creative in how those things look, and wanting to make sure that we are able to meet those needs in a more direct way. And so that's kind of where we've gone with some of these things. Just making sure that we get more information out to people, being able to be more consistent in how we get those messages to them, and then making sure we follow up with a lot of that stuff. So that was our in-person learning. And the other component to this was we didn't want to leave out those students that were still virtual. And that was really big, because we still have a significant amount of kiddos that are at home and families who are at home. And we want to make sure that they still feel connected, like they still have a place here, because they do. They are still part of our Valley Park families. And making sure that we are able to provide them with resources. We have things on the website that they are more than happy to use. We are available all the time, whether it's through phone calls, emails. I know personally in the middle school, we always try to do check-ins with those Edgenuity kids and constantly having communication with them. And that's been great. So just making sure that that piece of it is still in place. And, you know, we may not need that in the next year or two, but we know that we have a plan and we can use that. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to have Mrs. Hawkins talk a little bit about the elementary program and what they do specifically, just because, you know, we can talk all day about the generalities, but I think it'd be nice to hear about each building too. So.
Thanks, Erin. So at the elementary school, Yolanda Hardison and I, we have grade levels that we work with. And we've listed on here different things that we do at the elementary level, broken up by the components of guidance curriculum, responsive services, system support, and individual planning. And those are the 4 tiers that we really focus on for our guidance counseling program. So we go through every month, maybe more than once a month, and we complete counseling lessons based on what that classroom needs. So we really talk to teachers and base that on what those students in that classroom need. We use the Mind Up curriculum, which is a mindfulness curriculum that supports self-regulation. And we also have, for mindfulness and for self-regulation, we have safe spots in every classroom that the teachers are aware of. They understand how to regulate their students by using it. And the kids are also taught that, so they understand how to use the safe spots. They're taught that at the beginning of the year, every year. We also have implemented the Second Steps program in the classroom with teachers. They use it with their students weekly. And then as a counseling staff, we go in and teach the safety lessons to kids at the beginning of the year. So we really focus on that. For responsive services, like I said, we use the safe spot in every classroom for regulation. We also do individual counseling. In the past, we have done small group counseling. That's a little more difficult, like Erin said right now, but we are still able to work with that, you know, in a way, in a degree. We have CHADs come in every year and focus on suicide awareness and prevention. And we really focus on restorative practices at the elementary school. For system support, we are always focusing on collaborating with teachers and staff and parents. We believe that everybody is working together for that student. We have done book studies for self-regulation and mindfulness. We did the Whole Brain Child last year. And we also have provided staff with toolkits for trauma, since that is something that's really focused on right now. We wanted to provide that access to students and staff to help students in the best way possible. For individual planning, we have JA in a Day, which is Junior Achievement in a Day for K through 5. Unfortunately, this year we weren't able to focus on that because of the limitations that we've had. We also do goal planning, individual and small group. And like I said, we collaborate with teachers and staff on a day-to-day basis to find out what those students need. We also work really closely with administration to find out how we can help students in the best way possible, you know, limiting discipline, figuring out how we can get those kids regulated before they are referred to the office.
All right. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you, Erin.
All right. And let's go ahead and move on to the middle school. So middle school, we have really tried to piggyback a little bit off of what the elementary school is doing and build on those skills that they start with in the elementary school, so that way that we can see them progress and then send them off when they go to high school with a great start with some of these core concepts that we need them to have. One of the big goals in the middle school is really emphasizing our character education program. And one of the things on our slide mentions the mission statement that was written in 2003 and adopted in 2004. And that's kind of a driving force with a lot of the things that I do here in the middle school, that we make sure that we try to emphasize with our teachers, that we want these students not only to be able to do math and science and social studies, we also want them to be able to be good citizens. And those have lots of different little pieces to that. And we want to give them the best opportunity as possible. One of the big pushes now is taking our SEL program and really kind of merging it with our character education program. And we got very lucky this year that character.org, which is the national organization for character education, has partnered with Castle to create what's called CSED. And that is the Character and Social and Emotional Development Core Beliefs. And what it is just a complete merging of those two programs, where you would have your social emotional concepts as those big pie in the sky ideas, and your character education program is how you're actually implementing it. That's the hands-on piece of it. And we look at really trying to understand and get our families to understand that they are their first line of their child's education in terms of values and character education, and how can we support you there. And then when we pull that back into the classroom, is understanding that it's not an add-on, it's not an additional thing, it's not something that we're going to spend 30 minutes on every other day. It's something that should be interwoven into everyone's curriculum. It's a natural thing. You can stop and have a good conversation with a student if you are doing a restorative practice or a class meeting, and knowing that that creates that safe, caring environment that students need in order to thrive. We want that climate because we know that when they do feel safe, when they feel like they can take those risks, they're going to be more successful. Character education, when we talk about that, it talks about thinking, feeling, and doing. And what we're looking at is we're taking that head piece where you're thinking about, okay, well, what really does perseverance, what is perseverance? And then making that intrinsic, making them really want to feel like they want to persevere through a homework assignment. And then how do you catch them doing that? What's that piece? So it's a head, heart, and hands kind of a program. And then aligning that not only through the classrooms, but then how do you take that above and beyond with other things? If it's sports, if it's after school activities, and really making sure that it's part of our everyday life in school. We use a lot of direct instructions through second steps. We were very, very fortunate to be able to, like I said, piggyback off of what the elementary is doing. And I love the fact that we are able to use second steps at the secondary level through our advisory time. And they get the same vocabulary that they do in the elementary as they do here in the middle school. And it is a direct tier 1 program for social emotional learning throughout every classroom. And, you know, everybody benefits from that. That's been fabulous. We have lessons that are done through our advisory programs. My lessons that I would do if I would go into our classrooms, again, not necessarily a small group, we have lots of individual lessons. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that we've normally done, we've had to adjust because of a lot of our protocols. But we're doing it, and we're being very creative with that. And I think that the kids are finding that it's really nice to be able to walk in and have those one-on-one conversations, because they do need that time. Restorative practices is a very big push after we've had a whole group of people go through that training and be certified with that. And we focus a lot on conflict resolution. We want students to be able to not only build relationships, but maintain those relationships. And our conflict resolution skills are very, very important. And I know that our 6th graders are going to get that whole lesson next week with Mrs. Buckman and myself. We also implement a mentoring program, which we haven't been able to do as much with this year. We're looking forward to that next year. And our safe spaces, we kind of piggyback off of that with the elementary, but we also do that here in the office. So that way we can kind of debrief that and walk them through other things that they can do to help regulate themselves. Whether it's through a mindfulness piece, if it's through physical activity, whatever that would look like. Okay. And Emma, would you like to talk about the high school?
Absolutely. So thank you, Erin. And I just want to start by saying, obviously, this is just a snapshot of everything that we kind of have in the works and going on. I think it was a challenge for all of us to be able to sum up this huge part of what our job and our role with students is into this kind of one slide snapshot. But we did the best we could with that. And I also want to mention, just as many of you know, this is my first year with Valley Park, and been working in collaboration with Ryan Looting a lot, and it is his second year. So we are kind of building a lot of this program from what the high school had previously done, as well as, kind of molding it in the direction that we'd like to see it continue. So a lot of this is still in process and is still being created, but to me, that's a really exciting opportunity for us. What we have done so far, as Erin mentioned, the character education that they do is now working closely in tandem with CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And the CASEL framework is actually one that I am really familiar with and think is really awesome. It's research-based. It's been shown to have really awesome positive effects for students. So the CASEL framework is what we have actually started to build our high school SEL program on. And it has those 5 competencies that you saw on the previous slide. So I won't go over those again, but that is essentially the bedrock of where we are building this program. And so what we have done so far is we have created an SEL team in our building. So that is a group of myself, Ryan, and some other staff and teachers that are interested in pursuing this work and making it a more robust part of what we do at the high school. We've completed the CASEL SEL rubric. So we have evaluated where we are so far and made goals for where we want to go. We created this SEL shared vision that you see in front of you. That was just this past fall that we've created it. So we're pretty excited about being able to push that out and really integrate that into the culture of the high school. You'll see the 5 CASEL competencies in there: self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And then you'll also see some ideas that were really important to Ryan and I as we built this, kind of the idea of embracing imperfection, collaboration, and a growth mindset. And then lastly, we touched on the ways that we would be bringing these messages and these competencies to our students. So through explicit instruction, integration into our academic instruction, doing some work with increasing the supportive classroom climates, and definitely creating this culture of high expectations and high support. So what we look forward to kind of doing in the future is, as I mentioned, is definitely integrating this more fully into what we do at the high school. So direct instruction, we deliver through our advisory curriculum. We are very blessed this year to have moved to a schedule where we have advisory every single day. So that is a time where students are able to connect with the same group of students, and we have built-in time in our schedule to deliver instruction specifically about SEL, as well as other things that are important and are part of the counseling program as well. Those advisory lessons are actually written and created by an advisory committee team that we have within the school. We meet every Friday and we create lessons based on what our students' needs are. We actually just did a career planning lesson today that was very cool because it was individualized for each of our grade levels, and it's really a collaborative process because all of our advisory teachers then are giving this instruction to their advisory classrooms. We're also looking forward to integrating more of this SEL into our existing academic curriculum. So an important aspect of social emotional learning is not just that we're explicitly teaching it, but that it is kind of imbued in every fiber of what we do. And so one way that we're focusing on that is by conducting some professional development with our staff, specifically focused on social emotional learning and developing those competencies within our staff so that they're then able to model and mentor essentially these competencies for our students. Which also then ties into our next goal of developing our staff's SEL and kind of strengthening the culture that way. And then lastly, I know you've heard a lot of touching on the impact that SEL has with school discipline practices. So making sure that we are kind of reframing the way that our school looks at discipline and instead takes more of a restorative approach so that we are able to use it as a learning experience for a lot of these SEL competencies. And then on the left, you'll see just kind of a very broad broken down. Unfortunately, I think with everything that goes on in high school on a day-to-day basis, it can get kind of crazy. And a lot of this work sometimes defaults to the reactive side. We see a problem and we work to remedy that problem. But one of my big focuses this year has been trying to create systems that allow us to be preventative and to really get to our students before there is a problem so that we're building these skills in them instead of just, picking up the pieces afterwards. So that's kind of the lens that I look at a lot of this work. So our lessons, our professional development with staff, we have a senior mentoring program for freshmen. A lot of this work falls into that camp where our goal is to teach these students these skills so that they're able to practice them within our school environment. And then obviously, even with the best preventative measures, we will still obviously have situations that arise. So we're putting into place some specific systems for when we do have these situations arise. And one of the things that we have put into place this year is what I call our social emotional support team, as well as we have an academic support team. And we meet bi-weekly rotating. Teachers are able to submit students that they're concerned about. The team is able to submit students. You'll see a lot of the members of this team on the Zoom today. And it's really a good time for us to take some time out from the craziness and talk about what that specific student needs, how we can work to combat whatever situation is occurring, and then to, take it further if we need to offer more resources or continue with a SPED referral or something like that. So I think that has been a big part, an important piece of our social emotional learning vision and action for this year. And obviously, we do it all through the lens of the overall Valley Park mission statement, developing students intellectually, emotionally, physically, and socially, because we realize that they're ours now, but very soon they will be the world's. So we want to make sure that we are preparing them as best we possibly can.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emma. And again, thank you guys for giving us your time tonight. Before we jump off, because like I said, we don't want to waste time and we want to make sure that you guys are able to go through this. Is there any questions or is there anything that we can clarify for anyone?
I do have a question. Are you reaching out to parents to inform them what you are doing? Because I think that would be helpful.
Okay. So in terms of, our programming?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think that parents, I don't know if you do it at an orientation or if you have your own little group of parents that you bounce things off of, things like that. Kind of like an advisory committee.
At the elementary level, in the beginning of every year, we provide usually it's at like the parent night, the back to school night. The elementary level provides 3 sheets of paper for all of the parents at a table, and it describes what we do as our counseling program. This year, we had to do it virtually, and we sent it at the beginning of the year to all of our teachers to send home in a group email, and also send, like, post on their classroom website or however they communicate, so that their parents were aware what our services were for the elementary counseling program. So that's how we inform parents at the elementary level.
Yeah. And I know that at least, for middle school, we have tons of information on my website that they can always refer back to, ways to get a hold of us, and links to resources that they would always need. So, and I think, Emma, you've got the same thing going with the high school too, right?
That's a great point, Erin. Elementary has that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We have a ton of resources available on our website. And our goal is to, as COVID precautions hopefully ease up a little, is to include parents and other community members and stakeholders in our social emotional learning team. But I also think it's good to note that that's a great area for growth. I think that at the high school in particular, we do a good job, or a decent job, of spreading information about what we do in terms of college and career readiness and academic development and academic planning. But I think that it's definitely an awesome opportunity for growth to be sharing more of what we're doing with social emotional learning with our parents and our community.
So as far as the safe zone, the safe spots and the Zen zones, are students able to use those at this time? Have they been using them? And secondly, how is that information shared with the students for middle school and high school?
As far as middle school goes, we have shared that information with our teachers. And so what it usually is a teacher would refer them to come down, because one of the policies is it's not just, we want to make sure, number one, everybody's safe and still respecting those protocols and those boundaries with a lot of our pandemic issues, but then also making sure that we have room for them, because I can't have, again, 6 kids down here trying to regulate, because that's not social distancing. There's just not the space for that. So usually I would get a call that says so-and-so's having a rough day. They can send them down. We do some things, and once we walk through that and we can get them regulated, we can get them back to class, which is overall the goal. So
at the high school level, we actually, one of our very first advisory lessons of the school year was introducing our Zen zone and explaining to students the purpose of it, and starting to build those skills of self-management. I think that the reason that we wanted to put our Zen zone into place was because we want students to learn the idea that they are capable of managing their own emotions and don't always need someone else to step in to do that for them. So it's a big part of growth and self-development and all of that. So we did have a lesson that was dedicated to kind of introducing the topic, the area, what it's used for. Students have been using it, definitely. I think that at the high school level, we have a little bit more independence with it, whereas as long as a student is asking appropriately to be able to excuse themselves to use it, then they're able to do so, unless it becomes an issue that they are that they're abusing it for some reason. We have not had anyone abuse it so far, but again, that's high school as compared to middle school, so they've gained a little bit more of those skills by that point.
Right. Now, and I will say though, it's not just a physical room. We have, with the implementation of Google Classroom, we've been allowed to play a lot. So I do have Google Classroom set up for every grade level, and they do have what we call a calm down room, which is basically like a puppy cam and an aquarium and things that they can do on their own individually, where they don't have to leave a room, or if they're having a bad day and they don't have direct access to something, they can actually use those calm down rooms to work through whatever they need too.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I have a question. So if a student is in the classroom and not virtual, so they're actually in school, how are they able to use those things that you just mentioned? Do they just let the teacher know, hey, I need a couple of minutes, and then they go and use those resources to calm down? Do they have an area within the classroom so that they don't have to leave the classroom and go to the office or wherever it is that you meet?
Well, that's usually up to, at least for us, it's up to kind of the individual student and what the teacher is comfortable with. They can say that they're having a bad day, refer them down. Sometimes the students don't want to leave and they don't want to notice anybody to notice, so they will get on that classroom and just very silently, because they're very individualized in their classrooms, just take a moment and do some things. I do have some students that are practicing some of those mindful techniques where they can do some deep breathing without having anybody notice. And in middle school, that's a really big thing, is I don't want to seem different or that I need something strange and not be able to fit in with my peers. So we do a lot of that. Okay, these are the things you can do in the classroom that you don't have to single yourself out and have to come down.
Great.
I think that's a great idea. So can they just like shoot a message to the teacher and be like,
Yeah. Most of the time I get emails, hey, I'm having a bad day. And so I'll go down and check and say, okay, do you want to come with me? Do you want to do this? And they have options. And I always leave it up to them, because ultimately that's something that they have to decide for themselves. And we want them to practice that advocacy.
right? Okay, thank you.
At the elementary level, at the beginning of every year, at the beginning of this year, since it was virtual, we went through every classroom virtually and did a lesson on how you create a safe spot at home with the items that you have available to you. So every student could look different. Every room looks different at home. So the items that were appropriate for a safe spot in their room, what they could do with them, where a safe spot could be located in their house and that they needed to inform a parent of that safe spot. We went through all of the safety protocols within that safe spot and how they use it. So if a student needed to use that safe spot when they were not at school and they were at home, we went through how they did that on their own, as well as if they needed to when they were on the classroom lesson with their teacher, how they excuse themselves or ask the teacher for permission to leave for a little bit and then come back when they need to. So the teachers work that out with them as well.
And in person in the elementary school, we have safe spots in every classroom, so the students don't actually have to leave. They have been trained, I hate to say the word trained, but they have been encouraged to understand when they need to take a break. So self-reflection and say, I need to take a break. I'm going to step away, but I'm still going to be involved in the classroom, but I'm going to step away for a moment, self-regulate myself and get back involved.
Coping skills, I like it.
Very good.
Yeah, I wish you'd come to work and.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for this team?
No, we appreciate all your time and effort in putting this together and supporting our students and staff.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This is crucial, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having us tonight. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to 2.02 with public comments on posted agenda items. We actually have none. So then I will make a motion to approve our agenda. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, and we'll go ahead and all those in, I don't have to do roll call. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. So we have an agenda and we're going to go ahead and go through our consent items. 4.01, the approval of the regular session minutes from our February meeting. 4.02, the approval of the check register from March. 4.03, the approval of the board reorganization date, which is Wednesday, April the 14th. And 4.04, the approval of the 2021 preliminary non-binding tax rates. So do we need to pull anything out? Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve our consent items. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, consent items all pass. Action, and then that's really it for the evening for our general session meeting. We thank everyone for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
All right, and we'll do roll call for this. I'll begin with Della.
Aye.
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 Aye. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you all have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon.